Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of 4 February 2016, and you have stumbled upon the 19th installment of Rob and Steve's Traditional Knives Anthology. This is a joint project with the TheApostleP channel and Howabouthetruth. And tonight we are looking at the Great Eastern Cutlery Northfield number 74 Saddle Trapper. Saber ground saddle trapper, by the way. And that would be these two knives right here, one in stag, one in autumn gold jig bone. And riding along for comparison is a number 73 trapper, and we'll get into that knife for reference in a little while. Let's get right into Steve's research though, and it'll be entertaining as always, I promise. Here we go. Once again, hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Today we'll be looking at a rather unique two-bladed trapper style knife, the Northfield 748212 SAB. The knife's unique in a few ways in that the SAB designation stands for saber ground blades, found only on the Northfield versions of this knife. Secondly, because GEC only made this pattern in 2012, with a somewhat more limited choice of handle options compared to other GEC pattern runs. And third, because the moderators, along with a handful of senior members of the cutlery website known as Blade Forums, collaborated with Bill Howard, expressing their desire to have an annual club knife for the site for 2012 that would be very similar to the Tony Bowes 3.5-inch improved trapper. So Bill Howard drew up the design with exact dimensions, whereupon it was approved with much fanfare by the guys of Blade Forums. Yet another unique feature only to the 2012 Blade Forums club knife is that the main tang stamp is actually Blade Forums in bold block letters in an arch, and is literally the official brand of the knife. No Titusville or Northfield stamp, but it does have one stamp that says Great Eastern Cutlery and another that says Titusville Ironworks. And here, guys, is a picture that I found after much searching of that Blade Forums club knife, and I think you can make out that tang stamp. So take a look at that. Yeah, sorry I don't have one of those blades in front of the camera, but there aren't very many of them, and good luck getting a hold of one. This Blade Forums version sports a full flat ground 1095 blade set with a cut-in machined swedge for the main clip blade and a drawn swedge for the wharncliffe. Now let's take a look at some things we're talking about. First, saber ground blade. Notice how it is not full flat ground. The main bevel grind starts right here, with this being flat to the top. And then this Northfield has a drawn swedge. So this is done by hand, freehand, starting clear back here down to the tip. The cut swedge would have a 90-degree plunge and then swedged out to the end. And that plunge probably is right here at the peak of the spine. Just so you know what we're talking about. Now both blades had the regular crescent nail nicks and a long fancy bomb shield set in sort of a peach seed jigging, but all the jigging is in straight rows. I think they called the color green tea, Steve says. GEC made 252 of those club knives, and it wouldn't be until weeks, if not months later of the same year that Bill introduced his own version with saber ground blades and only on the Northfields. Only two handle choices were produced in the Titusville line, those being a beautiful autumn leaf jigged bone that's slightly similar to the color for the Northfield version, this one here, in bone, and the other Titusville offering was a very attractive and unique coffee house acrylic. Now both Titusvilles had the normal nail nicks and drawn swedges, the same or very close to the Northfields. Only the club knife had the machine swedge, which brings us to these gorgeous Northfields. These top shelf saber ground versions were offered in 4 handle choices, being Cocobello wood, natural stag, burnt stag, and my personal favorite of all the bone, including the club knife, these awesome autumn gold covers with random jigging. Let's take a look. Look at the depth of that autumn gold coloring and that jigging. I don't know how you do that. You know, good luck getting a look at the Great Eastern Cutlery's jigging, bone jigging tooling. But isn't that gorgeous? Man, just super handsome. Super, super handsome. I like that better than the stag. Okay, and we continue. There were no 440C acorn knives produced for this pattern. My only gripe is how high the warney rides while closed, but I still love the knife. And in my opinion, that is the most beautiful clip point blade of any traditional trapper style knife, bar none. Let's take a look at what Steve's talking about. Yeah. So if we're using the clip blade, look how high that warney rides. I personally don't hate it, but it just looks ungainly. The lines of this blade, the clip, are so graceful and symmetrical. I really dig how the clip slopes upward. So it's almost like a trailing point. The clip is actually concave. Upward toward the tip, allowing for a very fine tip for a saber ground blade. Yes, it does. Folks, this truly is old world styling that you will not find in any of the competition's traditional folders. All the newer clip blades have straighter lines with perhaps the exception of a couple Case Bose collaborations. For the record, there is one other clip blade that's very similar and just as handsome, made in the past 50 years, and you can see it on the fabulous authorized Winchester reproduction Sowbelly Stockman made by Queen for Charlie Dorton, then owner of Bluegrass Cutlery, back in 1989. Please look for that video in our TKA series right here on Rob's channel. Even the full flat ground versions of this 74 saddle trapper have the same graceful and classy shape. Now, I also have this knife in natural stag, Steve says, and the profile and the color and texture of those stag handles are matched far better than this burnt stag. Let's see. Yeah, there's kind of a high, smooth spot, which is probably why they burned this particular pair of handles, so that wouldn't stick out in white. But to be totally honest, Steve says, I like the unique appearance of this particular burnt stag much better. These covers are richer in color and texture and remind me of the very dark stag found on antique knives. To show the difference of this handle shape versus a GEC 73 Scout Trapper, I decided to throw in a bonus by including my old and very hard to find Scout in gorgeous ram's horn. So before we compare the two, a little information about this very special older 73 Scout. And let's sort of clear the table to do that. So here it is. It was made in 2007 as one of the very first special factory orders in GEC history for Cumberland Knife Works. Bill Horn was the owner, and at that time, I believe he was the first and biggest of the authorized GEC dealers. The other dealer was Perry Miller of then Spaceport Cutlery. Spaceport was an online and brick and mortar knife shop right here near me in Titusville, Florida. Not Titusville, Pennsylvania, Titusville, Florida. Perry resurrected the rarest tang stamp ever associated with the Case family right when GEC first started. The name was Tuna Valley Cutlery. All the tuna knives were made by GEC up until Ken Daniels bought Queen. Now, about a year before Ken bought Queen in 2012 and selling his interests in GEC totally to Bill Howard, he had bought the Tuna Valley name from Perry Miller. Until that time, Perry Miller and Bill Horn with Cumberland carried the bulk of the early GEC line from the very first GECs ever released, both as Great Eastern Cutlery's own brands and the Tuna Valley's as SFOs for Perry, plus the handful of SFO runs for Bill Horn of Cumberland. This is one of those knives. These were long gone by the time I discovered GEC. And my good buddy Barry Johnson of Gunstock Jacks bought this knife at a knife show and immediately sold it to me. Thanks, Barry. I have only seen 2 of these come up on eBay in the past 4 years. GEC never made a 73 Scout Trapper in this exterior ram's horn for themselves, and very few in any other patterns. Rob can give you the tour of this knife. Okay, let's take a look. Main blade is I guess it's a muskrat clip. There is a tiny, tiny peak right here and a drawn swedge. And it is probably the finest grit satin I've ever seen on a GEC knife. So we've got our Northfield unexcelled etching on the main blade. And then if we open the spay, we see the SFO etch Cumberland Knife Works Series 1. So this is not a Tuna Valley knife. This is a GEC Northfield unexcelled SFO for Cumberland Knife Works. Got it? So let's look at the comparison of the knives. With all the blades closed, bolsters facing the ceiling, please place both knives together with the bottoms of the back springs meeting each other. Okay. I think that's what he wants. Okay, note the difference in the bolsters. The 74 on the left has a bit longer bolsters, plus they extend beyond the spring ends. Okay, you see the spring ends are sunken below the end surface of the bolsters. Got to turn the page, friends. So the springs for both knives are the same width or thickness. However, the 74 springs are quite a bit taller. So as you're looking at it, top to bottom, they're the same thickness, but left to right, the springs are taller on the 74, which is on the left. Now the 73 Scout sports flush joints, okay? Meaning the end of the square tangs plus the spring ends are exactly flush with the ends of the bolsters, which is really cool. These flush joints were a very popular design long ago because they help to keep dirt and lint out of the joints from the end. But alas, boys and girls, the 74 Saddle Trapper has a few built-in tricks up its sleeve as well. Let's open and close all 4 blades of both of the 74s. You'll notice From closed to half stop, the pull weight is about a 6 or so. Okay, so from closed to half stop, very light pull. But from half stop to open, the springs really thrust the blades open. And once again, no philo vision on the TheApostleP channel. You guys are just going to have to trust us. Very easy to get out of the handle to half stop, and then a lot of effort required to pull it to the full open position. That pull weight in that second stage is probably closer to an 8. So because I now own 3 of this knife, Steve says, I can tell you guys this is no knife for knife fluke. All 3 knives share this identical walk and talk where they are user-friendly upon opening but increase in strength to keep the blades open. Very cool. So how does it work? Inspect the tang ends, and this is going to be hard to see, I'm sorry to say. You'll notice that the square tang ends are actually angled slightly and are not in the same plane as the springs. If I can get this, there you go. See, that's not one continuous line. Even if those, even if the springs and blade tangs aren't flush, normally they're all in the same plane, like you see on this 73. But you notice the blade tangs are angled down and the spring ends are straight. That's how we achieve that sort of 2-stage different pull weight. Okay? So folks, that is the work, Steve says, of a master cutler. You know, what that design for the joints is called? Does anybody know what that design for the joints is called? We don't know, but they are actually really sweet. Foolishness aside, among the master artisans, there must be a name for that design. If anyone finds out, please let us know. Weigh in the comments. I think Steve and I have called it a 2-stage pull. There has to be a better name than that for it. I've noticed this joint design on a few other GEC patterns with half stops, but I would have to start looking through my collection because I can't recall which ones they are. But make no mistake, these 74s boast the best design and feel. You really notice the unique blade action. I'm sure this was a popular design among other brands from long ago, but then there's the pesky feel of that tall warney in the handle. Boy, he just won't let go of that, will he? They could have kept the same warney shape. Now let's look at this. They could have kept the same warney shape and dropped it a full 1/8 of an inch deeper into the handle. Because there is about a 1/4 inch, and there is, guys, if you look at where that tip stops and how deep this handle is. The top of that spring's probably here. I mean, there's at least a 1/4 inch between the bottom of that cutting edge and the back spring. They could have dropped it 1/8 of an inch farther into the handle, at least. And then another reason it rides high is to make this same side nail nick accessible, but all they would have had to do is put the nail nick on the other side, and they could have dropped that thing down. And Steve says, if they had done that, voila! When using the warney now, that's not an issue, of course, because, well, the warney is not closed. There's something else I want to point out about this pattern, and it makes me drool. See back of this page. I searched all the older threads on blade forums pertaining to their 2012 club knife version of this pattern, and would you believe I couldn't find the first complaint about how that warney feels in the closed position? Rob here, I don't think it feels that bad either. Strange, Steve says. I was honestly expecting dozens of complaints about this issue. Remember, They had GEC make 252 of them for all the members, plus the possibility of a few non-members being able to purchase it. Go figure. But here's the thing that makes Steve drool. GEC made only about 50 each of their own version in 6 handle choices. So this 74 frame is an 1/8 inch longer than the 73 Scout. I think you could see that from when we had them back to back. I'm going to put the butt ends of the knife together, and you know, most of that is just because that bolster is sort of truncated on the 73 with those flat springs and flat blade tangs. So they're essentially the same chassis. There's one other difference. I'm going to open all these blades. I'm going to do this, I'm going to open these Mike Latham style. I'm not as good at it as he is. If you notice, little different handle profile. Pretty much the same curvature in the spine, but there's this little sort of sub-hilt or finger groove peak in the middle of the top side or bottom side of the 73 that's not present on the 74. Okay. Okay, I got more instructions here. Note the arch back of the 74 and how much rounder the butt end is compared to the 73. Let's see. Yeah, there's this point on the 73 and it's round on the 74. Okay. If you would, Rob, please open the main clip all the way with the warning at half stop. Okay, now it's going to get interesting. Main blade all the way, warning at half stop. With the warning pointing straight down, with the length of your thumb completely hiding the warning, and feast your eyes on what an awesome and well-balanced knife this would be as a single blade. Huh. Huh. Is anybody getting a hint? Mm-hmm. Now hold the knife in every grip with the warning still at half stop. Uh-huh. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. If that warning was totally out of the way, oh my. Oh. I would love one as a slip joint plus one with a lockback. And don't forget, if Bill would run her again but drop that warning further into the handle, that would be great too. The Case Bose version is nice, but I bet the fit and finish isn't near as tight and consistent. Plus, the case is only 3.5 inches. For a trapper, Steve says? Come on! The size and shape of this 74, plus that blade, really hits the sweet spot in my opinion. It's definitely a handsome knife already. Well, guys, Steve says to be continued, and until next time, but I'm going to let you in on a little idea that I've been kicking around. Some of you guys who watch closely and communicate with me a little bit know that for some time I've had it in my head to do my own special factory order with Great Eastern Cutlery. And because of my love for one Case Bose Lanny's clip, I'm thinking about doing exactly what Steve suggests. Perhaps with a full flat ground blade, a cut swedge, and a long pull, no etch and satin, with a couple of handle materials that I really love, like Gabon ebony and smooth ivory bone, and something very similar to this. Not sure what I might do with these bolsters. I have a name for it, but I'm not telling. Could you imagine? Oh, just look at that. Oh, baby. Oh, I gotta call Christine Tucker tomorrow. That's all for this one, my friends. What a cool blade. Just a great, it's a large improved trapper, but it's not like a back pocket knife. This is still a front pocket knife. It doesn't weigh a ton, but it's just so robust and beautiful. Man, just love it. And they haven't made them in 4 years. Don't you think they're due?